All right, so this is what we're going to build. It's a naughty or nice calculator. You can have someone come to this URL and fill out this form, and we can calculate if they're naughty or nice. So you would put in what's your first name, Scott. I'm going to say I'm 5 years old. Then I would read some of these questions. So you see someone drop their snack on the floor. What do you do? Let's say I'll help them pick it up and ask if they're okay. Laugh and say 5 second rule. Tell an adult and keep playing. I definitely helped them out. I guess I would ask them if they're okay. Could maybe edit that question a little bit. For the next one, it's time to clean up toys. What's your move? Start cleaning right away and help others too. Clean up a few toys after being reminded. Hide the toys under something and call it invisible. I think I would do A there. But I'm just going to quickly fill out the rest so you can see how this works. And I selected all the questions now. And when I submit this, it'll calculate for me if I am naughty or nice. So this is an HTML and CSS response page that we'll make within n8n. You can see I'm on the official nice list, and my category is nice list with a few warnings. So my score was an 8 out of 12. And then this is a custom response created by an LLM. I'm going to quickly just show you the workflow. Obviously, we're going to work through it. But you can see what our trigger here is a form submission trigger. Then I used Claude. I think I used Claude Haiku 3, that model, to process some of the data from the form, determine if we're naughty or nice. Then we have a code step here, which we'll review. And last but not least, this is the form ending page. That's where you see the nice like HTML and CSS that we saw here, which is formatted. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, let's get started. We're going to create a trigger to initiate our workflow. And that trigger is going to be an n8n form submission trigger. And this is going to be our naughty or nice form that a user will fill out to determine if they're naughty or nice. So here we have the on form submission trigger. I'm going to click on that one. And we have a test URL and a production URL. We don't have to worry about those too much at the moment. So we have to build our form here. And let's just put in some basic elements. So here we have the form title. Just going to call it naughty or nice. Going to just skip this description for now. And we'll add a form element. The first form element, I'm going to ask, what is your first name? And the element type will be text. Here I can put, I don't know, Santa. The placeholder is just kind of what shows up in the form field where it's kind of grayed out. It's not the actual value. And we're not going to include a default value here. We'll also make this a required field. And let's just go ahead and take a look at this. I'm going to execute this step. And you can see what we're dealing with here. This is what our form currently looks like. I can put in my name here. What is your first name? Scott. And we'll submit that. And notice this is then what we'll get in our output. And this is the data we get from the form. It has the question name and then the value to that question. So I don't love that, like, this might be hard to manipulate and get that value. So what I'm going to also do here is, just for now, I'm going to put something in here like Q1, which represents question 1. This might help us track the values we get in our output a little bit better. The only drawback of that is that the user is going to see it on their end as well. But let's just take a look at it again. Still think that doesn't look terrible. And there's other ways around this and doing some more complex code steps later on that I'm trying to avoid. So I'm trying to use some of these naming conventions to make our life a little bit easier and not have to do those code steps. Okay, So let's fill out some of the other basic ones here. We have, what's your first name? I want to add another form element. This one's going to be a number value that they'll have to input. I'm going to ask them, how old are you? Placeholder, I'll just put in 5. No default value. Let's just add one more in here too. Email address. And element type, we have an email element type. This one, we can have santa@santa.com. I'll make that required as well. Most of these are going to be required. So these are kind of like our housekeeping values we want, because we might use the first name later on in the email or the certificate. Same thing with their age and the email address. We may email them the certificate. So we want to collect that as well. So let's just quickly execute this step. And notice what I forgot to do here. I didn't add in the Q2, Q3. So let me go ahead and do that. So how old are you? Q2. Email address, Q3. And once again, we don't have to include this, but I do think it's going to make our life a little easier as we read through this data. So that's why I'm adding that. All right, so we got this, this, and this, all Q3. Let's just test everything. I'll put in my name, populates my email. I'll say I'm 5 years old. Let's submit that. And here we go. Here's the value we get back. And notice like the form here, like we have Q1, Q2, Q3 in there. I do think that makes this much easier to reference, at least visually right now. And later on, I think we'll have some benefits there as well. So the next thing we want to do is start putting in the questions that would determine if somebody's naughty or nice. These are kind of the fun questions we get to add. And I have a prompt. It's not a crazy fancy prompt or anything like that, but let's go ahead and find it. Where is that? Here it is. Here's my recording stuff. Here we go. I have it saved in my clipboard. I'll get you a copy of this, but it says generate 6 fun multiple choice questions for a naughty or nice holiday quiz for kids ages 5 through 12. So once again, you can adjust that. You can make this more adult oriented, however you want to do it. Now we're going to say format each question like this. Let me just make this a little bit clearer for us to read. We have a question. It's going to be a text question. We'll have option A. That option A is always going to be worth 2 points when we go to calculate who's naughty or nice. Option B, they'll get 1 point. And then option C, they'll get 0 points. Option A is obviously kind of like the nice answer. And option C is the naughty answer. You don't get any points for that. So I'm going to go ahead and run this prompt. It's nothing too fancy. Just kind of get the ball rolling here. And let's see what it comes up with. So you see someone drop a snack on the floor. What do? Help them pick it up and ask if they're okay. Yeah, I think that's a nice response to that. Tell an adult and keep playing. Another decent response. Laugh and say 5-second rule. I think my daughter would do that one. But yeah, as you can see, you get a good feel for these questions here. I'm going to start putting some of them now into our form submission. And let's go ahead and do 1 or 2. And then I'm going to take a break and do them all on my own, just so it doesn't take up too much time. So we're going to add form element. For these, since we have A, B, and C options, I'm going to use the drop-down feature. And I'm going to copy this question right here. Put it up here. And I'm going to put in Q4 for this one. Drop down. We're not going to have a default value. And I'm going to also include the A in this. And I'm going to leave that point total out because they shouldn't know how many points each question is. Then I'm going to add another field option. And these are just going to be the field option or like the drop down selections. Here's B. And now I'm going to add C into there. And let's go ahead and execute this step. Let's see what everything looks like here. So first name, let me just autofill some of that in. I'm 5. And here's our drop down values. So we have A, B, and C. So let's go ahead and click A, submit this. And now we can see the values here. We have question 1, question 2, question 3, and question 4. The reason why this is just looking funky right now is because I have this super zoomed in so you guys can see everything, but you can see kind of the output there. Let me see if I can zoom out for a sec. There you go. That's like a little bit better. There's definitely some ways I know I always forget. There we go. You'd see that a little bit better now. But yeah, so we're going to repeat these steps for all the questions we want to put in. I'm going to take a quick break and we'll get back to where we left off. All right. So here I finished up all the questions. You can see them in the JSON output. We have question 5. It's time to clean up the toys. What's your move? And if I scroll to that one, here it is. The field name is the question. The element type's a dropdown. And for field options, I put in A, start cleaning right away and help out, B, and C. So this is how all of them are formatted. And as you can see, related to the naughty or nice questions, we have about 6 of them. So what do we do with this info now? It's a great question. And I actually thought about this kind of hard because we're in a weird state here. We could use code such as JavaScript to extract the responses and then put point values towards, let's say if the answer was A, you get 2 points. If it was B, then it was 1 point. And then C is always a 0 point option. But there'd be a lot of code in that. And you could use an LLM to potentially help you make that code and make a node for that. Or we could just use AI to give it the info, essentially send it a prompt and get a response back. And for this exercise, I thought it'd be easiest to kind of steer away from the actual code portion and try to leverage an AI prompt. And there's pros and cons to that approach, which we'll discuss through this. I think one of the biggest cons is it's going to cost you a little bit of extra money, right? It's not going to cost a tremendous amount. But if you were to do this on a bigger project, it's definitely something you'd want to consider more intently. For our project, we're going to use a very cheap and fast LLM, and it's not going to really cost much, if anything. I mean, it'll cost a little bit, but it's not going to hurt the bank by any means. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I like using Claude, and I did already create a key for this just to kind of test out. But I'll create a new key, and then I'll delete that key because I don't want you to see my actual API key. So you can use Claude, you can use ChatGPT, whatever LLM you want to use. We're not going to dive too much into detail there. But you want to go to the console, then anthropic.com, and then go to the API keys section. So you'd have to have an account with Anthropic. And I can make this a bit bigger for everyone. Let's go ahead and create a key. Name your key. I'll say n8n, naughty nice calculator. We'll add that. You can see the key right there. All right, there it is, everyone. But I'm going to delete it right away. All right, but that's how you create a key. Now, I already have a key attached to this project and to n8n, so I'm just going to use that one. But that's how you would create a key. And now let's go ahead and go to our next node that we have to add, which I'm going to connect it to Anthropic. But you could also use Gemini. You can use OpenAI. There's a bunch of different options here. I chose to use Anthropic. And for this section, for the actions, we're not going to analyze a document. We're not uploading anything. We're not looking at images. We're not generating a prompt. We're going to give it a prompt. So in that action, we're going to use the message a model action here. So now I'm going to use, I guess, this second one that I have, but you may have to add your own credentials in. So you would put your API key in right here. You leave the base URL, and then you would just click save. And it should then be hooked up for you. The resource is going to be text, message a model. Yes, we're going to message a model. And what model are we going to use? I'm going to use an older one and a quick one. I'm going to use Claude 3 Haiku. It's cheap, it's fast, it's exactly what we need for this. And the prompt, what is the prompt? Well, I pre-created that for us. We can read it over here. And, this prompt could definitely be tweaked. This is what works for me, though. So we say, you're Santa's helper reviewing a child's naughty or nice quiz. Here are their answers. So we put in their name, and notice these double braces here, right? That's that expression syntax that we discussed in some of the email videos in previous projects. So this will then extract the value from the first question, what is their name? And it'll put the name value there. For age, it'll do the same exact thing. It'll extract what value was in the form for the question, how old are you? Same thing for all the answers to the other questions. So this is just some data keeping right here. And this is the section that would have been a little bit complicated if we were to do this with JavaScript. Not complicated, I wouldn't say, but if you don't know JavaScript, it would have been over your head. Then we're also telling it how to calculate everything. So this is another thing we would have had to do with code, but we're just telling the LLM, hey, do this for me. I also made sure to tell the LLM to double check your math. LLMs are not always great at performing math, but there's ways to get around that. And for the purpose of this project, not the most important detail or not. This is a fun project. And then last but not least, I told it how I want the response to be. So I want their name to be in the data given back, the score, the max score, and the message. So you can review this prompt and tweak it however you want based on what you're trying to do with this project. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to copy and paste this whole thing. Boom. And inside of our prompt here, I'm going to change it to expression. I'm also going to make this bigger. I'm now going to paste this inside of here. And it looks like the JSON values are mapping correctly. Notice here's the expression. Here's the output of that expression. So notice the names added, the age, and then the responses to the questions, right? And then the rest of this is just a prompt that we're essentially going to give to the LLM that we're working with. So I'm going to save this. Let me X out of it. I don't think we really need anything additional here. So let's go ahead and execute this step and see what the response is. Okay, awesome. Notice we have content, type is text, and the response is right here. This is in JSON. It's a little funky. And in the next step, we're going to extract the text here and then make the certificate that we're going to give to the child submitting this form. All right, so we left off where this data is not easy to work with. In JavaScript, and specifically JSON, the left-hand side here, before that colon, is something called a key. And then to the right-hand side, we have something called the value. These could be strings, numbers, and other values. And in this example, notice we have a string here because this is in double quotes. And then we have something that kind of looks like another JSON object, but it's all encapsulated in a string. This is a tricky value to work with. and we're not going to be able to extract like name, score, max score, category easily from this value. So what we want to do is be able to make it easier to work with an n8n. So what we have to do at this point is we have to make another code step. And this is actually our first code step. And here I'm going to delete everything. And what I'm going to do first is just write out the solution to this. And then we will review it. And maybe we'll even have ChatGPT come up with its own solution as well. So from this code step, we want to return a value. So I use the return keyword here. I want to use json.parse because we're going to be working with so like a JSON value here. And now we basically just want to get this value from, basically just want to pass this value. I wonder what happens if we just do this. Actually, that's all we have to do. So I was going to write all this out, but that's all we have to do here to get the value that we want. So let's go ahead and execute this step. And notice the difference here. This is a string. This has key value pairs, name, Beckett, score 3, max score 12, and so on. So this is going to be much easier for us to work with in the future. And what was happening here is we had a JSON string, but essentially we just wanted to make it an object like this. And you're able to do that with this JSON parse method. Just for fun now, let's ask ChatGPT how we could solve this. And this, because this might be something you will have to do. If you're not too familiar with coding, you'll probably want to use ChatGPT for this. And the trick here is knowing what to ask and how to ask it. We're not going to do a crazy prompt here or anything. I'm just going to talk into the mic and have it record me, and we'll see my prompt and what it comes up with. But to start, I want to give it at least a context of what we're working with here. And then I'm going to say something like this. I'm working in n8n, and I want to create a code step to help me change the format of the value at the text key listed below. Notice it's all a string, but instead I want that to be an object so I can use it more easily in other sections of my workflow. Can you help me? Can you write some JavaScript to help me transform that value so I can use it more easily? I'm going to use this JavaScript inside of a code step. So I think I repeated myself like 5 times there, but let's just see what happens. What's happening? All right, so it's kind of explaining to me the solution, which is nice. All right, so I'm just going to come to here. I'm going to copy this code. Notice my code here. I'm going to comment that out. That's what these double brackets or lines, I don't know what you call them, but that just comments it. So it's not actually going to be run anymore. I'll paste in the ChatGPT code. It's a bit more verbose. There's some safety checks in here, which is nice, but not necessary at this point either. And let's execute the step. Notice we get the same exact output, which is great. It did 1 or 2 nice things here, though. Something that I would probably do later on if it was in production. Essentially, if there's not a text value here, okay, it's going to throw some type of error. So we know why it didn't execute later on down the road. That's what some of this extra code is. Also, some of the extra code is just doing what I did in a bit more smaller chunks, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. So overall, I like the code that it wrote. But for now, just to keep it a little bit more simple, I'm just going to keep what I had. But if you were at a point when you're working on something and you didn't know what to do, this is where talking to ChatGPT might be extremely useful. All right, so I'll include this, execute that step again. and we're good to go there. All right, now for the next part. We have the data, how we want to use it. We started off with a form submission, and we have one more node to make now. And I forget the name of this node, but it's this n8n form. And what we wanted to do is have a form ending action. So on form ending, this is what's going to be on the screen after somebody submits the form. This is going to be the final thing that they see after they submit it. So what we can do here is we can show some text. And I created some HTML and CSS already for this. So I have it right here. This is HTML. And then the style tag is CSS. And then notice what we have down below here, which is going to be shown to the user. We have those JSON values, right? And we have these expression values. That's what we use in n8n. So we're using the data that we have from those key value pairs we just created. And we're going to use them in our final output. So I'm going to click expression here. Let's make this bigger. I'm going to paste all that code in here. And notice here are the expressions, and it's using these values, JSON.name. We have score, category, on the fence, the message, and yeah, that's pretty much all we need. If I click over here to see the HTML, we can see the output. Official nice list certificate. This certifies that Beckett is on the fence. Beckett, the elves have been keeping a close eye on you and your quiz answers. So that's the output, and that output will change because the LLM is the one that writes it every single time. The scoring system will be pretty much deterministic, I believe, but it still could always vary because it's being run through an LLM. It's not being run through actual JavaScript. But anyway, that's how this pretty much works. I'm going to click out of this for now, save that, and let's execute the workflow. Actually, let's publish this. Go here, this version, let's publish that. And then what I could do here is go to the production URL, and let's open that up. Let's paste it in. Here we go, naughty or nice. What's your name? I'll use my other daughter's name, Tatum. She's 2. We'll do Tatum at tatum.com. We're not actually doing anything with the email address. Maybe in your version, you might be sending them an email of their report. There's a lot more you can do. But since we're not using it here, we could just take that out. I'm going to give her a mixed score. Maybe lean it more towards nice and just see what the output's going to be. I have everything there. We'll hit submit. This is now going to run through all of our code steps, and then we should see that final HTML screen. Awesome. So notice the message here is different. The score is calculated. The categories here, the names here, and all of that is coming from the values we put into our form and everything from the AI model to the code step, and then everything we inject into the form. So that's pretty much how you do it. We're done at this point. What I'm going to do a quick experiment on right now is trying to generate some of this HTML from ChatGPT since we have that open. I'm just going to do a quick prompt and see what it comes up with. And then we're already done. But if you want to stay on for this, feel free to follow along. So let's go back. Whoops. This. All right, so here's this. What I want to do is copy the format that's here. And I want to get the name of this node. It's a form node. What's this thing called again? I forget what it's called. Let's just here, go to search, n8n form ending. Okay. So I'm going to paste this in. We're using n8n, and we are creating a form ending screen. We want to have it be Christmas themed using HTML and CSS. We have the data points in the JSON object below, and we want to include the name, the score the user gets, also the max score so they see how many points were available, the category, and then the message. These should be all laid out on the page. And this is portraying the information of if the person was naughty or nice. You do not have to calculate naughty or nice. It's in the data that we are already providing. We just want you to display that information on the page. It should be Christmas themed. It should be fun and playful. What I expect from you is some HTML and CSS along with using the data that I give you and presenting it on the page. This will be the final response screen after somebody completes the form, and they should see their report then. All right, definitely not a great prompt, but I'm just doing this real quick. But we can see here we go. It is generating some HTML. The style tag, this is where CSS is. I really hope it doesn't start writing JavaScript. I should have told it do not write JavaScript, but we'll see what happens. Right, I don't think in the last one we had any JavaScript. We have a style tag. And what we'd be looking for here is a script tag. This isn't really JavaScript. This is evaluating an expression. This is more of an n8n thing. But like essentially we would, if it was running JavaScript, we'd something like script, and then we'd see maybe something like document, like get element, and all this other stuff where it's just not necessary. Oh man, all right. It's doing some JavaScript here. All right, so at least it gave us some tips here. It's showing us that in n8n, this data typically comes from the previous node. So we can just inject this in ourselves. So we'll have to figure out how to do that. So I guess we would directly inject stuff in here. Window.report. And yeah, like I don't love all of this down here. Here, what I'm going to tell it to do right now is I want to pull straight from n8n. So can you remove the report syntax and use the n8n expression syntax instead? From my first message, you have the names of each key. Those are the same keys that will be used in n8n. All right, let's see how it fixes this up. Notice it didn't really pick up n8n. It says nan. Hopefully it does this right. While we're waiting for this, though, we can at least just look at what the style is going to look like. So I'll copy this, and in our form node, it's going to be an expression. I'll paste that in. We'll execute the step. It looks different. It looks kind of cool. It looks correct here, but the values it's using are not correct. So let's just see what it comes up with. All right, so notice it's using like those JSON objects now. It got rid of that report and the script tag and everything like that. So it might look a little different too, but at least now it's more compatible with n8n. So I'm going to copy this. That's our older version. Let's go back here. paste this in, execute that step. Okay, so like nothing different on the surface, but now do we have any other data in here? Let's go back. All right, let's fill out the form one more time to test. I'll use my younger daughter, Tatum, to Tatum at tatum.com. Fill these out real quick. See if I can make her like borderline. Submit. Everything's running. Hopefully we'll have dynamic values and I'll use her name, which it did. So that worked. This also looks pretty cool. And this is just an example of, using ChatGPT to kind of come up with this HTML for this section. If you don't have any coding experience, it's definitely something I suggest doing. And just having a little bit of knowledge about that expression syntax was really useful here. You don't have to be an expert in it, but I was able to, the nice thing was ChatGPT told us some of this, right? It told us about, it's like using n8n. In n8n, this data typically comes from the previous node. It shows us that exact expression syntax. So this was something that you probably would have been able to debug without being able to necessarily identify it right away. There were instructions about it. And obviously the prompt really wasn't that great, right? I don't know if I actually explicitly told it to do it, but I should have said something like, use the n8n like expression syntax. Do not write any custom JavaScript. That would have helped it probably do this more in one shot. And then obviously with the styling, I gave it pretty vague style instructions. It's like Christmas themed, fun, playful. And who knows how it's going to interpret that. I could have given it more of like a style guide. Maybe, told it to include a photo of Santa, or who knows. But this is how you can start using these LLMs to help you get through some of your workflows and fortify them, make them better, debug them. And yeah, it's an awesome tool to have. So that wraps this one up. Hope you had fun with it, and we'll see you in the next one.